This first episode is about to be so fruitful, hopefully. So sit back, grab some tea or coffee, a pen or pencil, a notebook, and get ready to be enlightened. This episode is titled, How to Manage Your Emotions. In other words, how to master emotional intelligence. I want to start off by reciting the actual definition of the word emotions, and that is a natural, instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationships with others. First off, the word natural is the first thing that stood out to me. Too often, society or even the people around us make us feel like our emotions are invalid, over-exaggerated, or unnecessary. I want to clarify that it is true. Feeling emotional is natural and perfectly okay. What's not okay, however, is using our emotions to verbally or mentally abuse ourselves or others around us. It may make us feel better temporarily, but that's just it. It's temporary. In the Bible, Proverbs is the book of wisdom. In Proverbs chapter 16, verse 32, it states, "He that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city." So, someone that is slow to anger and has control over that portion of their spirit is greater than someone who is physically strong. It takes a lot more to be emotionally, mentally, and spiritually strong, and it's a lot harder. The second part of the scripture goes on to say that someone who rules his own spirit is greater than someone who could take down an entire city. Physically, they may not be, but ultimately, that does not matter. It takes a lot more strength to hold your peace. Something I always try to remember is that you can't take words back. Once you put them into the world, they're there. Someone has grasped the words you spoke, even in passing, and held onto them, believe it or not. This is something I always try to consciously remember when I'm speaking to others, even casually. I know this because people have and still continue to do this to me. They make comments in conversation, and I remember them. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. On the contrary, sometimes I still do this to others. I say something I didn't mean to say out of emotion, or in a manner that I didn't mean to, still out of emotion. But I know, and I'm telling you all, that words hold meaning. It can be very beneficial to take trauma and pain that has been inflicted onto you, recognize and acknowledge it, and then make a conscious effort not to pass that on to others, especially when you're feeling out of spirit. I cannot express how important it is to break the cycle for you and others around you. Now, circling back to when we do feel those big natural emotions, I want to stress how important it is to understand both being overly emotional and repressing emotions are trauma responses. Somewhere and at some point in our lives, we experienced an event or a series of events, and we did not know how to handle it. Some people responded by learning how to overreact and communicate through emotions, while others responded by completely shutting down and pretending they weren't feeling what they were feeling, and what was happening wasn't happening. In my humble opinion, both are unhealthy coping mechanisms that can affect our emotional health and our relationships with others as adults. I also like to add that trauma differs between people. What you may find traumatic, another person may not. What someone else may find traumatic, you may not. We all have different triggers and different levels. Now, trauma itself is a whole other episode discussion, and I'm so excited to record it in the coming weeks. Some of you may already know from following my Instagram, but I'd like to re-announce that I'll be taking a trauma-informed certification course online from April to June. This course is a 12-week program at the School of Radical Healing, and it focuses on how trauma affects our mental and physical health, as well as the foundations of the mind-body connection, practicing self-regulation, creating and enforcing boundaries, healthy relationships, and so much more. I'm so grateful for this opportunity because I actually got in on a scholarship that I submitted just on the whim. And this is such a fruitful opportunity for me to grow in my personal life, within my relationships, with my business, including this podcast, and within my job outside of being a business owner. I really believe this opportunity is going to add to my human capital. Now, back to what we were discussing, emotions. Let me reiterate, emotions are natural, but we have to reverse these unhealthy responses, and one of the most crucial ways is to submit to your emotions. Now, for people who struggle with being overly emotional, I don't mean lash out or listen to the voice in your head telling you to do or say something that you probably wouldn't normally do. No. What I mean is, we need to recognize, acknowledge, feel the emotions, and let them pass, because they will. They always do. I've never met an emotion that didn't pass after a few hours or a few days. If I have, then I knew it wasn't a temporary emotion and that it needed further addressing. Really quickly, let me just share. Just a few days ago, I was having a mental breakdown at the gym because I went at a time I don't normally go, and it was a bit busier than normal. For me, that causes some slight anxiety no matter how long I've been going to the gym. I've been exhausted all week from planning content, getting ready for my new collection launch, managing school and work. And when I looked around, literally everyone, seemed to have these super cute planned outfits on, and I was so disheveled and felt so ugly, to be completely honest. Now, I understand that's not the point of the gym, but for some reason, my brain was just hyper fixated on that, and I wasn't able to let go of it. Now, for me, this will make me go straight home. But at that point, I'd done pretty well nutritionally, and I was actually going to the gym in the perfect sequence. So, logically, I knew I'd be so mad at myself if I didn't get my workout in. I had to actually talk myself through each workout and make sure I wasn't cheating myself and trying to rush, because I've done it so many times in the past. This is a regular occurrence for me. Fast forward, a few days later I went to the gym and I felt more prepared and I looked a little more decent, or maybe my mood was just different. midway through, I was like to myself, wow, you're making progress. You're executing your workouts perfectly. You look good. You wore the perfect outfit. When you look good, you feel good. And then I remembered how I felt the complete opposite a few days before. And I was like, oh, how fast your emotions can change. Because that was temporary. And honestly, those feel-good feelings are temporary too. Let me just enjoy them while I can. Even the bad feelings. Like most of us, I am still a work in progress when it comes to maintaining my emotions. But I was proud of myself because once I identified them, I just needed to work through them. The process differs for everyone. Now, something that really helps me avoid unhealthy emotional responses is to self-soothe. Self-soothing is simply a behavior or action that one does to regulate their emotions by themselves. How many times have you gotten sad, angry, or overwhelmed and you ended up venting to a friend and later on you realized, I shouldn't have done that? Maybe they did more harm than good and said something that offended you. Maybe they didn't seem to care enough and that hurt your feelings. Maybe they gave you bad advice. Whatever the case may be, they left you feeling like you should have kept it to yourself. Really quickly, I'd like to note that I am not pro keep your feelings inside. That is very dangerous. Whenever someone mentions that, I just go berserk. However, sometimes we need to give it a few hours or even a few days to settle. It's best to self-soothe until we understand our emotions ourselves and until we understand them well enough to communicate them without offending others, without being overly emotional to the point where we don't make sense, things like that. Personally, when I resort to self-soothing, I like to journal immediately. Journaling allows me to take my emotions out of my spirit and place them onto paper. Even if I feel just a little bit better afterwards, that makes a huge difference. Something else I like to do is take a bath or a nice shower, moisturize, do a skincare routine, and go to bed early. I consciously decide to end my day right then and there, right at the tip of the iceberg when things just get a little too overwhelming, because I can always start again the next day. Self-soothing can be anything that helps you remain at peace. And it isn't just for regulating emotions, it also works super well with managing anxiety. Learning to manage your emotions can be tricky, especially if you've been stuck in your ways for so long. It can definitely get uncomfortable. Remember, you are aiming for regulation, not repression. You're identifying, accepting, and feeling your emotions. You are giving yourself space to decide whether or not these emotions are worth pursuing. You can do this. Write these affirmations down and utilize them. That is all for this week's episode. I hope you've all been enlightened, inspired, or encouraged to start managing your emotions just a little bit better than you did before. This first episode is taken absolutely forever to be produced, but I am committed to persevering and keeping my word. If you liked today's episode, please consider leaving a review. Peace Be Still with Katerra Renee is available everywhere, so don't forget to save it to your library so you can be updated on my latest episodes. Lastly, if you'd like to donate in any way to Alternatives for Girls, which is the shelter/transition to independent living facility that I'm currently employed, I'll be leaving the link to our site and Instagram below. Grab some tea or coffee. I'll also leave the link for anyone who's interested in the Trauma Informed Certification course. Get ready to